The vast expanse of the galaxy stretched out before Captain Eli Voss, a testament to the vastness of the universe and the insignificance of humanity's exile. Adrift on the fringes, he had long since reconciled himself to the fact that his kind would never again be welcomed among the stars. The weight of that burden had become a constant companion, a shadow that darkened his every thought. Eli stared out the view screen of his modest transport vessel, his weathered features etched with a lifetime of hardship and regret. It had been decades since the fateful decisions that had led to humanity's banishment, decisions that still haunted him, a heavy price to pay for the mistakes of the past. A sudden beeping from the ship's console shattered the oppressive silence, drawing Eli's attention. His brow furrowed as he studied the incoming transmission, its origin unfamiliar. Curiosity piqued. He activated the communications array, bracing himself for what might lie on the other end. The image that materialized was that of an alien being, its features sharp and angular, eyes burning with a fierce determination. "This is Zira of the Crixian people," the figure announced, its voice tinged with a sense of urgency. "We are under attack by the Arkanth, a merciless force that seeks to subjugate our world. We have sent out a distress signal, and our last hope lies with the exiled humans. If you receive this message, please, we implore you to come to our aid." Eli's breath caught in his throat as he listened to the desperate plea. The Arkanth, a name he had not heard in decades, a memory long buried. He had hoped to never again confront the nightmares of his past, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. With a heavy heart, Eli considered his options. Ignoring the call for help would be the easiest path, allowing him to maintain the solitude he had carved out for himself. Yet the guilt that had consumed him for so long stirred within, a constant reminder of the consequences of inaction. He had once been a soldier, a defender of his people, and the thought of turning his back on those in need weighed heavily upon him. Closing his eyes, Eli steeled himself, knowing that the decision had already been made. "Coordinates received," he replied, his voice gruff and devoid of emotion. "I'm on my way." The journey to the distant planet was a solitary one, Eli's thoughts a whirlwind of memories and emotions. He had not set foot on an alien world since the exile, and the prospect filled him with a mixture of trepidation and a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in this act of redemption, he could find a way to atone for the sins of the past. As his vessel breached the atmosphere, Eli's gaze swept across the war-torn landscape. Towering cities lay in ruin, their once gleaming spires reduced to rubble. Smoke billowed into the sky, obscuring the horizon, and the distant sound of explosions echoed through the dense foliage. Guiding his ship towards the designated coordinates, Eli caught sight of a figure standing amidst the chaos, a lone warrior bracing for the onslaught. This must be Zira, he realized, the one who had sent the distress signal. Touching down, Eli emerged from his vessel, his eyes immediately locking with those of the alien warrior. Zira's expression was a mix of relief and caution, her posture tense, ready to strike at the slightest provocation. "You came," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of surprise. Eli nodded, his gaze sweeping across the devastation that surrounded them. "I did. What is the situation?" Zira's eyes narrowed, her jaw set with determination. "The Arkanth have been relentless in their assault. They seek to conquer our world, to assimilate us into their empire. We have fought back with all our strength, but their numbers and technology overwhelm us." Eli felt a familiar weight settle upon his shoulders, the burden of responsibility he had once carried. "And you believe the exiled humans can make a difference?" "We have no other choice," Zira replied, her voice laced with desperation. "Our people are dying, and we cannot hold out much longer. If you have any skill in combat, any knowledge that could aid us, then we beg you to lend your strength to our cause." Eli's gaze hardened, his mind racing as he considered the gravity of the situation. The Arkanth, a name that had haunted his nightmares, were once again threatening the innocent. Could he, in good conscience, turn his back on those in need, even after all that had transpired? With a deep breath, Eli stepped forward, his decision made. "Tell me what I need to know. I'll do what I can to help." Zira's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope sparking within them. "Then we have no time to waste. Follow me, and I will explain the situation in detail." As Eli fell into step beside the alien warrior, A sense of purpose began to stir within him, a glimmer of redemption that he had long since thought lost. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Eli felt a renewed sense of determination, a chance to right the wrongs of the past and forge a new future, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. The harsh alien sun beat down on Eli as he followed Zira through the war-torn landscape. The devastation was even more apparent up close. Buildings reduced to rubble, scorched earth, and the acrid smell of smoke hanging in the air. Eli's military instincts kicked in, his eyes constantly scanning for potential threats. Zira led him to a makeshift command center, a once grand structure now reinforced with salvaged materials. As they entered, Eli noted the mix of advanced technology and primitive defenses, a stark reminder of the desperate situation these people faced. "This is where we coordinate our efforts against the Arkanth," Zira explained, her voice tinged with both pride and wariness. She gestured to a holographic display showing troop movements and enemy positions. "But our strategies have proven ineffective against their superior technology." Eli studied the map, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Your defensive positions are spread too thin," he observed, years of combat experience flooding back. "You're trying to protect everything, which means you're protecting nothing effectively." Zira's eyes narrowed, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. "We cannot abandon our people. Every settlement, every outpost is sacred to us." "And that sentiment will get you all killed," Eli retorted, his voice harsh but not unkind. "Sometimes, to win a war, you have to make hard choices." The tension in the room was palpable as Zira and Eli locked eyes, two warriors from vastly different worlds, trying to find common ground. After a moment, Zira's shoulders sagged slightly. Perhaps you are right, but how can we ask our people to abandon their homes?" Eli's expression softened, recognizing the weight of leadership on Zira's shoulders. "You don't ask them to abandon their homes. You ask them to fight for them in a way that gives them the best chance of survival." As they continued to discuss strategy, Eli found himself impressed by Zira's quick mind and adaptability. Despite their initial clash, she was open to new ideas, her fierce determination to save her people evident in every word and gesture. Hours passed as they pored over maps and tactical data. Eli shared his knowledge of human warfare, while Zira explained the unique aspects of their planet's terrain and the Arkanth's known tactics. Slowly, a plan began to take shape, one that combined the best of both their worlds. As night fell, Zira led Eli to a small chamber where he could rest. "We begin training at first light," she informed him. "Our warriors are eager to learn from you, though some may be skeptical of an outsider." Eli nodded, understanding the challenges that lay ahead. "I'll do my best to earn their trust." Left alone, Eli sat on the edge of the simple cot, his mind racing. The ghosts of his past whispered in the shadows, faces of comrades lost, the weight of decisions that had led to humanity's exile. He clenched his fists, pushing back against the tide of guilt that threatened to overwhelm him. "This is different," he muttered to himself. "This time I can make it right." The next morning, Eli stood before a group of Zira's warriors, their alien features a mix of curiosity and suspicion. He could feel their eyes on him, judging, assessing. Taking a deep breath, he began to demonstrate human combat techniques, explaining the principles behind each move. At first, the warriors were hesitant, their movements stiff and uncertain. But as the day wore on, Eli saw a change come over them. They began to incorporate his teachings into their own fighting styles, creating a hybrid form that was both familiar and entirely new. Zira watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. As the training session ended, she approached Eli. "Your methods are unorthodox," she said, a hint of grudging respect in her voice. "But I can see their effectiveness." Eli allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes, the unexpected can be our greatest advantage. As they walked back to the command center, Zira suddenly stopped, turning to face Eli. "Why did you really come?" she asked, her piercing gaze searching his face. "You could have ignored our distress call, stayed hidden in your exile. Why risk everything for a people you've never met?" Eli was silent for a long moment, the weight of her question settling on his shoulders. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and filled with emotion. "Because I've seen what happens when good people do nothing. I've carried that burden for too long. This This is a chance to make things right, not just for your people, but for mine as well. Zira nodded slowly, a new understanding passing between them. Then let us hope that together we can forge a path to victory. As they resumed their walk, Eli felt a glimmer of hope stirring within him. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose, a chance at redemption. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, not just for himself, but for the future of two worlds. The alien sun had barely crested the horizon when Eli found himself standing before a group of Zira's warriors, their eyes fixed upon him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The training ground, a cleared area amidst the rubble of what was once a thriving city, bore silent witness to the clash of cultures about to unfold. Eli took a deep breath, centering himself before addressing the assembled fighters. Your enemy may have superior technology, but they underestimate the power of adaptability, he began, his voice carrying across the field. Today, we blend your traditions with human tactics. Together, we'll create something the Arkanth won't expect. As he demonstrated a series of human combat maneuvers, Eli could sense the initial resistance from some of the warriors. Their movements were stiff, uncomfortable with the unfamiliar techniques. Zira, observing from the sidelines, stepped forward. "Remember the words of our ancestors," she called out, her voice ringing with authority. "The strongest blade is forged in the hottest fire. Embrace this challenge, for it may be our salvation." Her words seemed to ignite a spark among the warriors, and Eli watched as they threw themselves into the training with renewed vigor. As the day wore on, he began to see a transformation. The alien fighters started to incorporate human techniques into their own unique fighting styles, creating a hybrid form that was both graceful and deadly. During a brief respite, Zira approached Eli, her expression thoughtful. "Your methods are unorthodox," she admitted, "but I can see their potential. Tell me, what drove you to become a warrior?" Eli's gaze grew distant, memories of Earth and his past life flooding back. "Where I come from, we have a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I couldn't stand by and watch injustice prevail." Zira nodded, a newfound respect glimmering in her eyes. Perhaps our peoples are not so different, after all. As the training intensified, Eli found himself learning as much as he taught. The alien warriors shared their own combat techniques, rooted in centuries of tradition and honor. He marveled at their agility and the way they seemed to flow like water around their opponents. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the war-torn landscape, Eli sat with Zira, poring over battle plans. The tension between them had eased, replaced by a growing sense of camaraderie. "Your people have a rich history of warfare," Eli observed, studying a holographic display of ancient battle formations. "These strategies, they're unlike anything I've ever seen." Zira's eyes gleamed with pride. "Our ancestors believed that true victory lies not in the defeat of an enemy, but in the preservation of one's honor and the protection of the innocent." As she spoke, Eli felt a pang of guilt, memories of humanity's exile threatening to overwhelm him. Zira, sensing his discomfort, placed a hand on his arm. "The past shapes us, Eli, but it does not define us. Your actions here now are what matter." Her words struck a chord within him, and Eli found himself opening up about the burden he carried. He spoke of the decisions that led to humanity's banishment, the weight of responsibility that had haunted him for years. Zira listened intently, her expression a mixture of compassion and understanding. When Eli finished, she was silent for a long moment before speaking. "In our culture, we believe that redemption is not given, but earned through actions. You have taken the first steps on that path by coming to our aid." As the days passed, the fusion of human and alien combat styles began to take shape. Eli watched with pride as the warriors executed complex maneuvers that combined the best of both worlds. Yet, even as progress was made, the looming threat of the Arkanth cast a shadow over their efforts. One afternoon, as Eli demonstrated a particularly challenging technique, an alarm blared across the compound. Zira's voice crackled over the communication system, urgent and tense. "Arkanth scouts spotted on the outskirts of the city. All warriors to battle stations." Eli's heart raced as he saw the fear and determination etched on the faces of those around him. This was it. the moment when theory would be put to the test. As he moved to join the defensive line, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Zira, her eyes blazing with a fierce intensity. "Remember, Eli," she said, her voice low and filled with emotion, "whatever happens, you have already brought us hope. Now let us show the Arkanth the true strength of our alliance." With a nod of understanding, Eli took his place among the alien warriors. As the first signs of the enemy appeared on the horizon, he felt a surge of resolve. The path to redemption lay before him, forged in the crucible of battle and the bonds of unexpected friendship. The tension in the air was palpable as Eli and Zira led their small contingent towards the outskirts of the city. The Arkanth scouts had been spotted, and everyone knew this skirmish could be the turning point in their struggle. Eli's heart raced, a mixture of anticipation and dread coursing through his veins. As they approached the designated defensive position, Eli couldn't help but marvel at the seamless integration of human and alien tactics. The warriors moved with a fluid grace, their movements a perfect blend of Zira's people's traditional combat style and the techniques Eli had taught them. "Remember your training," Eli called out, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing around them. "Use the terrain to your advantage and stay unpredictable." Zira nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The Arkanth rely heavily on their technology. Our new strategies may be the key to catching them off guard." Suddenly, the sky lit up with a barrage of energy weapons. The Arkanth attack had begun in earnest. Eli's military instincts kicked in, and he quickly assessed the situation. The enemy's advanced weaponry was formidable, but their tactics were predictable, a weakness they could exploit. "Zira, take your best marksmen and flank them from the east," Eli shouted over the din of battle. "I'll lead a frontal assault to draw their fire." Without hesitation, Zira rallied her troops and moved into position. Eli watched in awe as she gracefully dodged enemy fire, her movements a testament to years of combat experience. For a moment, he felt a surge of admiration for her skill and bravery. Pushing those thoughts aside, Eli focused on the task at hand. He led his group in a charge towards the Arkanth lines, utilizing the cover of debris and fallen structures. The alien warriors moved in perfect sync with him, their newly learned human tactics catching the enemy off guard. As the battle raged on, Eli found himself face to face with an Arkanth soldier. The alien's cold, calculating eyes bore into him, a stark reminder of the ruthless force they were up against. Eli's muscles tensed as he prepared for the confrontation. The Arkanth struck first, its movements blindingly fast. Eli barely managed to dodge the attack, feeling the heat of an energy weapon graze his arm. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he retaliated with a series of quick strikes, blending human martial arts with the fluid movements he had learned from Zira's people. For a moment, Eli gained the upper hand, his unorthodox fighting style confusing the Arkanth warrior. But as the fight wore on, fatigue began to set in. The Arkanth's superior strength and endurance were taking their toll, and Eli found himself being pushed back. Just as he thought he might falter, a familiar voice rang out. "Eli, duck!" Without hesitation, Eli dropped to the ground. A split second later, Zira leaped over him, her weapon connecting solidly with the Arkanth soldier. The alien crumpled to the ground, defeated by their combined efforts. Zira extended a hand, pulling Eli to his feet. "It seems your human tactics have some merit after all," she said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Eli nodded, catching his breath. "And your people's agility saved my life. I'd say we make a good team." Their moment of triumph was short-lived, however. The Arkanth, realizing their initial strategy had failed, began to regroup. Their technology allowed them to adapt quickly, and soon they were pressing forward with renewed vigor. Eli watched in horror as several of their warriors fell under the onslaught. The reality of the situation hit him hard. They were outgunned and outnumbered. Memories of past failures threatened to overwhelm him, the weight of responsibility crushing down on his shoulders. "Eli!" Zira's voice cut through his spiral of doubt. "We need you focused. Our people are looking to us for leadership." Her words snapped Eli back to the present. He took a deep breath, pushing aside his fears and regrets. "You're right. We're not done yet." Together, they rallied their remaining forces, coordinating a strategic retreat. As they fell back towards the city's defensive perimeter, Eli's mind raced with new ideas, analyzing the Arkanth's weaknesses and formulating plans for their next encounter. The skirmish had been costly, but not without value. They had gained crucial intelligence about their enemy's capabilities and tested the effectiveness of their combined tactics. As the last of their warriors made it to safety, Eli turned to Zira, his expression grim but determined. "We held our own today, but barely," he said, wincing slightly from his injuries. "We need to regroup, analyze what we've learned, and come up with a new strategy." Zira nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow for their losses and pride in their accomplishments. "Agreed. This battle has shown us the true nature of our enemy, but it has also proven the strength of our alliance." As they made their way back to the command center, Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose. The near defeat had forced him to confront his deepest fears, but it had also shown him the potential of what they could achieve together. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time since arriving on this war-torn planet, Eli felt a glimmer of hope. The true test was yet to come, but Eli was determined to face it head-on, not just for the sake of Zira's people, but for the chance at redemption, for himself and for all of humanity. The aftermath of the battle left a somber atmosphere hanging over the makeshift command center. Eli sat hunched over a table strewn with holographic maps and data readouts, his brow furrowed in concentration. The skirmish with the Arkanth had been costly, but it had also provided valuable insights into their enemy's tactics and technology. Zira entered the room, her steps heavy with fatigue, but her eyes still burning with determination. "Our scouts have returned with the salvaged Arkanth equipment," she announced, placing a small metallic device on the table. "Perhaps this will shed some light on their motives." Eli's eyes widened as he examined the alien technology. Something about its design stirred a memory deep within him, a fragment of knowledge from humanity's past. With trembling hands, he activated the device, and a flood of data filled the air around them. As they sifted through the information, a chilling realization began to take shape. The Arkanth's conquest of Zira's world wasn't merely an act of expansion. It was part of a larger, more sinister plan. "This can't be," Eli muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Arkanth, they're not just conquerors. They're searching for something they believe is hidden on your planet." Zira leaned in, her expression a mix of confusion and concern. "What could they possibly want from our world that would justify such destruction?" Eli's mind raced, connecting dots that had eluded him for decades. "It's not what they want from your world," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "It's what they believe your world can lead them to. Something that ties directly to humanity's exile." The revelation hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Eli found himself recounting the events that led to humanity's banishment, pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. "Our leaders discovered an ancient artifact," he explained, the weight of history in his words. "Something of immense power that they believed could elevate humanity to new heights. But in their arrogance, they awakened something they couldn't control. The resulting catastrophe, it's why we were exiled." Zira listened intently, her eyes widening as she grasped the magnitude of what Eli was saying. "And you believe this artifact is connected to the Arkanth's invasion of our world?" Eli nodded grimly. "The data suggests they're following a trail, jumping from world to world in search of clues. Your planet, it must hold some key to unlocking the artifact's location." The implications of this discovery were staggering. What had begun as a desperate plea for help against an invading force had now become something far more complex, a battle not just for Zira's world, but potentially for the fate of the galaxy itself. As they delved deeper into the Arkanth's data, Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. The guilt that had plagued him for so long began to transform into determination. Here at last was a chance not just for personal redemption, but for humanity as a whole to right the wrongs of the past. "We need to act quickly," Eli said, his tactical mind already formulating plans. "If we can decipher the clues the Arkanth are following, we might be able to stay one step ahead of them." Zira nodded in agreement, her warrior spirit rising to the challenge. "My people have ancient legends, stories passed down through generations. Perhaps they hold some truth that could guide us." As they worked tirelessly through the night, poring over both alien data and the rich oral history of Zira's people, a plan began to take shape. They would need to venture into the heart of Zira's most sacred and dangerous territories, seeking out the truth hidden within the planet's mysterious past. The dawn broke, painting the war-torn landscape in hues of hope and possibility. Eli stood at the command center's viewport, gazing out at the world he had come to defend. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, but for the first time in years it felt like a mantle he was ready to bear. Zira joined him, her presence a silent source of strength. "Whatever lies ahead," she said softly, "know that you have earned the trust and respect of my people. We face this challenge together." Eli turned to her, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Together," he agreed, the word carrying the promise of a new future, for her world, for humanity, and for himself. As they prepared to embark on their perilous journey into the unknown, Eli felt a surge of resolve. The path to redemption lay before him, intertwined with the fate of two worlds and the echoes of an ancient power. Whatever trials awaited them, he was determined to face them head-on, guided by the hope of forging a new destiny for all. The air crackled with tension as Eli and Zira stood atop a ridge overlooking the vast battlefield. Below them, their coalition of human and alien warriors prepared for the impending clash with the Arkanth forces. The fate of Zira's world, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Eli's eyes scanned the horizon, his mind racing through countless battle scenarios. The knowledge they had uncovered about the Arkanth's true motives weighed heavily on him. This wasn't just about saving one planet anymore. It was about preventing an ancient power from falling into the wrong hands. "Are you ready?" Zira's voice cut through his thoughts, her tone a mixture of determination and concern. Eli turned to her, a wry smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "As ready as I'll ever be. Your people have shown incredible courage and adaptability. We stand a fighting chance." Zira nodded, her eyes reflecting the fiery determination that had first drawn Eli to her cause. "Then let us make this day one that will be remembered in the annals of both our histories." As if on cue, the distant rumble of Arkanth war machines filled the air. Eli raised his hand, signaling to their forces. The hybrid army they had forged moved with practiced precision, taking up defensive positions that blended the best of human and alien tactics. The battle erupted with a fury that shook the very ground beneath their feet. Energy weapons lit up the sky as the Arkanth unleashed their technological might. But this time, Eli and Zira's forces were ready. They moved like water around the enemy's attacks, striking back with a combination of advanced weaponry and guerrilla warfare techniques that kept the Arkanth off balance. Eli found himself in the thick of the fight, his body moving on instinct, years of combat experience guiding his every move. He ducked under an energy blast, rolling to his feet and taking out an Arkanth soldier with a well-placed shot. Beside him, Zira moved with fluid grace, her traditional fighting style now seamlessly integrated with human tactics. As the battle raged on, Eli caught glimpses of the larger picture unfolding around them. Their coalition was holding its own, the unexpected combination of strategies proving effective against the Arkanth's superior technology. But victory was far from assured. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield. Through the smoke and chaos, Eli saw a towering Arkanth war machine advancing on their position. Its weapons were unlike anything they had encountered before, tearing through their defenses with terrifying ease. "Zira!" Eli shouted over the din of battle. "We need to take out that machine, or we'll be overrun." Without hesitation, Zira rallied a group of her best warriors. "Follow me," she called out, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "We'll provide a distraction while Eli finds a way to bring it down." As Zira and her team engaged the war machine, drawing its fire, Eli's mind raced. He studied the behemoth's movements, searching for a weakness. Then he saw it. A small opening in its armor, exposed only for a moment when it fired its main cannon. Eli knew what he had to do. It was a desperate plan with little chance of success, but it was their only hope. He turned to the warriors nearest him. "Cover me," he ordered, before sprinting towards the war machine. Time seemed to slow as Eli weaved through the battlefield, dodging energy blasts and leaping over debris. He could hear Zira shouting orders, keeping the machine's attention divided. As he neared his target, Eli saw the main cannon begin to charge for another devastating attack. It was now or never. With every ounce of strength he possessed, Eli launched himself towards the exposed weak point. He felt the heat of the cannon's charge singeing his skin as he sailed through the air. At the last possible moment, he thrust his weapon into the opening, unleashing a concentrated burst of energy. The effect was instantaneous. The war machine shuddered, its systems overloading from the unexpected assault. Eli barely had time to roll clear before the behemoth exploded in a spectacular display of fire and twisted metal. As the dust settled, a hush fell over the battlefield. The Arkanth forces, seeing their prized weapon destroyed, began to falter. Seizing the moment, Zira rallied their troops for one final push. "Now!" she cried, her voice carrying across the war-torn landscape. "For our world, for our future." The coalition surged forward, their combined might overwhelming the disorganized Arkanth. Within hours, the tide of battle had turned decisively in their favor. As the last of the Arkanth forces retreated, Eli found himself standing amidst the aftermath of their hard-fought victory. The cost had been high, but they had prevailed against seemingly insurmountable odds. Zira approached him, her armor scorched and dented, but her eyes shining with triumph. "We did it," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your leadership, your willingness to fight for a people not your own, you've given us more than just victory. You've given us hope." Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders, years of guilt and regret finally beginning to fade. "We did this together," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Your people's strength, their willingness to adapt and trust an outsider, it's something humanity can learn from." As they stood there, surveying the battlefield that had become a symbol of their unlikely alliance, Eli knew that this was more than just a military victory. It was the dawn of a new era, one where the mistakes of the past could be rectified, and two vastly different peoples could forge a path towards a brighter future. The battle was won, but the true challenge, building a lasting peace and uncovering the full truth behind the ancient artifact, still lay ahead. Yet for the first time in years, Eli felt ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold, with newfound allies by his side and the hope of redemption burning brightly in his heart.